Today, I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 6 NFL Draftkings main slate. And like I always do here with these videos, I'm going to kick it off with a couple of my favorite game stacks, and then we'll dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's dive right into this. And the first game stack that I like here for this weekend is going to be that game between the Colts and Jaguars here. And there's a number of different ways that we could certainly stack this up. I talked about Christian Kirk in my cash games video yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you go do so. But he's going to be very popular here, especially in tournaments this week, considering his price at $5,400. So I got away from him, and the stack that I like here in this game is stacking up Trevor Lawrence with Calvin Ridley, as well as Evan Ingram, his tight end, and then running it back with a cheap option on the Colts side of things with Josh Downs. Now, as you can see here, the implied total for this game is at 44 points, fourth most on the main slate, and the reason I kind of like attacking the passing game here for the Jags is because this Colts defense has not been able to stop the pass all year long. They've allowed the most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, and the second most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, and that is based off of Draftkings scoring. And again, running it back with Josh Downs is a cheap option. Plus, the Jags haven't been great against slot wide receivers this season, and Downs is going to run in the slot about 87% of the time. And then the other game that I like stacking up here on the main slate this week is that game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Seattle Seahawks. And there's certainly a number of different players that we can mix in on this stack as well. On the Seattle side, we got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You want to get really cheap, you could go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Maybe they get him more involved after their bye. On the Cincinnati side of things, sounds like T. Higgins is going to be back. We could go cheap with Tyler Boyd or mix in a Joe Mixon. But I like keeping the stack simple on my side. I'm going to be rolling out Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, just a simple stack there, and then running it back with Kenneth Walker. Now, the reason I like stacking up the Cincinnati side from the passing game is the Seattle defense has really struggled against the pass this year, allowing the second most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks and the most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. We should see Jamar Chase open all day, and then running it back with Kenneth Walker also makes sense, as this Bengals defense has not been good against the run, ranking 30th in defensive rush DVOA, and you can see the implied total there is at 45.5, third most on the main slate. Now folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would truly appreciate that. We're trying to get SlyDog Sports here to 4,000 subs, and every like, comment, and sub on this channel really does go a long way. With that being said, let's dive into these individual plays. And another quarterback that I like here this week is going to be Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. And yes, I talked about him in my cash game video yesterday, but I'm going to be playing this guy a lot in my tournament lineups as well. Sitting at $6,100 on Draftkings here this week in a great matchup at home against the Arizona Cardinals. At that price, we need 24.4 Draftkings points in order for him to hit 4x value. Very capable of doing that in this matchup, especially with Cooper Kupp back, a healthy Puka Nacua. That passing game has looked awesome, and Stafford has looked great too, ranking first in big time throw rate, sixth in passing grade, fourth in passing yards, and this Cardinals defense is not very good, allowing the sixth most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks this year. Now, moving over here to the running backs, one guy you're not going to see me highlight on this video is Raheem Mostert. Again, talked about him in my cash plays video yesterday. I will absolutely have exposure to that Miami offense here this week. Great matchup against Carolina. But pivoting away from that, just tournament plays here. One running back that I like is Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints, sitting at $6,800 on Draftkings this week in a matchup on the road against the Houston Texans. At that price, we need 27.2 Draftkings points in order for him to hit 4x value. And Kamara's been a volume monster so far throughout 2 games, averaging close to 25 touches per game and 90 total yards per game. We've seen him involved in the running game and the passing game, kind of a mix of both in each game. So I don't really know what to expect more of here, but I know the volume will be going his way against the Texans. And this Texans defense hasn't been good against the run this year, ranking 22nd overall in defensive rush DVOA. And then the other running back that I want to highlight here is DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles. Ever since he's taken over as the RB1 in this offense, he's been really solid good week in and week out. Sitting at $6,100 on DraftKings here this week, a very affordable price in a matchup on the road against the New York Jets. We need 24.4 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value at this price, and ever since he did take over as the starter, he's been a volume monster just like Kamara, averaging 22 touches per game and close to 127 total yards per game. Really like those numbers. And I don't want to say this Jets defense has been bad against the run this year, but they certainly haven't been great. Let's call it mediocre, if you will. They rank 15th in defensive rush DVOA, and they've given up the 15th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. And then I got a few wide receivers here. A lot to love about the wide receiver position here this week. Again, not to sound like a broken record, I talked about that quite a bit in my cash video yesterday. One guy I didn't highlight yesterday and definitely want to play in tournaments this week is Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. Sitting at $9,000 on DraftKings here this week. He is expensive, but again, a beautiful matchup at home against the Arizona Cardinals. At that price, we need 36 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. Any wide receiver can do it. It's certainly Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Those guys can go for 35 plus. And I'm 100% okay playing Puka Nacua too, and we could even run a double stack with Matthew Stafford because again, this Cardinals defense has just been really bad this year, ranking 30th in pass defensive DVOA. The next guy I got on my list here then is DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears, and I know rostering the Bears offense isn't the sexiest of plays, although Justin Fields is coming off back-to-back games with 4+ touchdowns, and this is another good matchup for them to build on that at home against the Minnesota Vikings. Moore sitting at $6,500 on DraftKings here this week, so we need 26 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. He's leading the team with a 22% target share, 44% air yard share, and he's had 3 games over 100 receiving yards as well. Really like to see that, especially when you get that 3-point bonus from DraftKings. And again, this Vikings defense just not very good, ranking 21st overall in defensive pass DVOA. And then a wide receiver play here in the 4K range that should definitely fly under the radar, more off the path type of play is Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. And again, hey, I know everyone, rostering the Falcons in our lineups isn't always the sexiest of plays, but we're talking about tournaments here. I'm talking about the Millie Maker. If I'm trying to get very contrarian, I think we can do that with Drake London, and I do like this matchup at home against the Washington Commanders. He's sitting at $4,800 on DraftKings here this week, so we'd only need 19.2 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. I like the numbers for him as well. 22% target share, 30% air yard share, 26% first read share over his last 4 games, while leading the team in red zone targets. Plus, this Commanders defense is not good against the pass, ranking 28th overall in defensive pass DVOA. So again, purely a tournament play for me, but I do like this price here for him, and I do like the matchup, especially playing indoors. And then I got a couple of tight ends there for you, and one guy I would be willing to spend up for in my tournament lineups this week is TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings, especially considering there's no Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews on the main slate. He's priced at $6,600 on DraftKings here this week in a matchup on the road against Chicago. We need 26.4 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. Plus, no Justin Jefferson here this week in the foreseeable future for the Vikings, and Jordan Addison could see an uptick in targets go his way, but I expect Hawk to be the #1 pass catcher in this offense for the next few weeks, and this Bears defense has allowed the 4th most receptions and 10th most receiving yards to opposing tight ends this year. And then a cheaper tight end that I like here this week is Logan Thomas of the Washington Commanders, and yes, I talked about him in my cash game video yesterday, just like Matthew Stafford, but someone I'm going to have exposure to in quite a bit of my tournament lineups this week, priced at $3,500 on DraftKings. In a matchup on the road against Atlanta, we need 14 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value, and in the 3 full games that he's played this year, he's got a 17% target share and 18% first read share, plus he's tied with the team lead with 4 red zone targets, and this Atlanta defense has not been great against tight ends, allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game and 5th most receiving yards to the opposing position. And as always, going to wrap it up here with a couple of defenses. I have no problem spending up for defenses here this week in the 3K range if I have the salary remaining in my lineup, but with that being said, I'm going to highlight 2 defenses in the 2K range here today. First being the New England Patriots here at $2,600 on DraftKings, playing the Las Vegas Raiders on the road. We need 10.4 DraftKings points in order for them to hit 4x value, and there's just a little narrative here, right? facing the former coach in Josh McDaniels, facing the former quarterback in Jimmy G. Pats might know a thing or two about those guys, plus Jimmy G, not a very good quarterback. He has 7 interceptions already this year through 4 games. And then if I'm really looking to spend down here at this position, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers at $2,300, playing at home here against the Detroit Lions. Yeah, the Lions are certainly a better team here this year than they've been in years past, but we only need 9.2 DraftKings points in order for this Bucs defense to hit 4x value. Plus, Goff has been much better at home compared to on the road. He's got 14 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in his last 6 road games. Plus, he's not very great against the blitz either, and Tampa blitzes at the 3rd highest rate. You can see his yards per attempt there when he's blitzed versus when he's not blitzed. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this Week 6 main slate. In the meantime, I'm out of here.